The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. After he had fed the people, Jesus made the disciples get into a boat and precede him to the other side, while he dismissed the crowds. After doing so, he went up the mountain by himself to pray. When it was evening, he was there alone. Meanwhile, the boat, already a few miles offshore, was being tossed about by the waves, for the wind was against it. During the fourth watch of the night, he came toward them walking on the sea. When the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were terrified. "It is a ghost," they said, and they cried out in fear. At once, Jesus spoke to them. "Take courage, it is I. Do not be afraid." Peter said to him in reply, "Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water." He said, "Come." Peter got out of the boat and began to walk on the water toward Jesus. But when he saw how strong the wind was, he became frightened, and beginning to sink, he cried out, "Lord, save me." Immediately, Jesus stretched out his hand and caught Peter and said to him, "O you of little faith, why did you doubt?" After they got into the boat, the wind died down. Those who were in the boat did him homage, saying, "Truly, you are the Son of God." The Gospel of the Lord. Peter, Peter, Peter. I'm loving the flawed leadership of Peter these days. I mean, as leader of the gang, he was going to show the boys what faith in Jesus was all about. So he does something crazy and climbs out of the safety of the boat and immediately becomes filled with self-doubt and begins to sink. Peter, Peter, Peter. I'm identifying with him a lot these days. I mean, as leader of this gang, I've basically said that it's okay to climb out of the boat of isolation, which is a little bit crazy as the pandemic seems to be worsening. And so, for the past few days, I've become filled with self-doubt and have been sinking into the fears that our gatherings will cause the virus to spread. Peter, Peter, Peter. Flawed human that I am, I shouldn't make the mistake of thinking that I can do better than Peter. Whether it's a pandemic, or hurricane, or illness, or money problems, or family concerns, we are all going to have our moments when we lose our nerve, when we get filled with doubt and begin to sink. When that happens, hopefully, we'll find the grace, like Peter, to cry out, "Lord, save me." Faith is given to us as a gift. And even when we fail to hold on to that gift and begin to sink, Jesus is more than ready to immediately reach out and grab hold of us. We aren't asked to walk on water, but to act like we believe that God's love for us is more powerful than the chaos of a hurricane or the uncertain spread of a virus. So this gospel story is about the God who reaches out to our midst in the life of our troubles and saves us. This is the story about Jesus, the Son of God, who calms our fears. This is the story about the love that reaches out to well-intentioned disciples, but faltering disciples. This is the story about Jesus never giving up on a person whose faith is strong at one moment, but full of doubt the next. This is a story about those times when we find it simply impossible to walk towards Jesus, only to find Him walking towards us and saving us from drowning in our fears and our troubles. The focus of this miracle wasn't the walking on the water. It was the saving of Peter and the disciples in the midst of the chaos of a storm. No matter what troubles we face in this life, we would be crazy to think that we can handle those troubles on our own resources. I'm always amazed at the large number of people who tell me that they are a walking miracle, that God has intervened and saved them, rescued them, strengthened them, healed them from serious illness or helped them overcome tough circumstances, that they could not have made it without God. I hear such comments all the time. And the focus is never on the miracle or an explanation, a rational explanation of how this good thing happened. Rather, the focus is always on God's intervention in their lives and their deepest appreciation for God's presence in the midst of the storm. I love those stories, witnessing to God's saving love. Peter, Peter, Peter. Like Peter, we don't always get this faith thing right. But always, God is there for us. Always, God is here for us. So, we gather this day, rejoicing in His saving love. We gather this day and every Sunday to join with the disciples in praising God as we give homage to Jesus, saying, truly, you are the Son of God. Amen.